So here we all are again. Some of us, it feels like a miracle. My system crashed, but here we are, navigating the technological so that we can actually come together. So Ajahn Sucitto and I are going to respond to some of the questions that have been sent through. Some he responded to in an earlier session, which those in the Americas and Pacific weren't at, but it's recorded. So if there's something you sent through, just check in there. He may have responded in that session, when we were asleep, And there are questions that are coming through that we thought to leave till later in the retreat, as they're more about things that are arise as we start to emerge back into more contact. So if we don't seem to be responding, that may be the reason. But also where there's more coming in than we can feasibly approach. So I think each of us are offering responses, but it's very different than being able to engage with you and actually make sure this, what we're taking as the meaning of your question was actually what was intended. So I hope you receive them in that spirit. We're doing what best we can with this dimension. So starting off here, recommendations for maintaining mindfulness, going to sleep, usually at night, and waking in the morning. Maybe I just say a little and then pass it over to the Ajahn. So when we considered this question, it really felt like it was in the territory of, there's waking, sleeping, and there's going to work, there's the ways we actually are energetically having to move through a day. So how do we maintain mindfulness through it all? And even that intention's important, isn't it? That commitment, that sense of, let's not drop this. So both of us have been talking about staying really embodied, and that seems to be one of the keys. And the sense of uprightness, because what I find myself in engagement, I kind of get energetically pulled out. So it's really about coming back into alignment. And then going to sleep, kind of finishing off the day. There are recollections that really help to establish mindfulness, aren't there? That sense of recollecting the goodness that we've received in a day. Letting that be swept, massaged through the heart, our good intention. So reflective quality. And then we're actually establishing sleep in a careful way. This whole new phenomena of sleep hygiene. So it's really respectful, understanding what sleep is about, this replenishment. And I don't know about you, but as the retreat's gone on, sleep is disappearing from my system. So then it's just, for me, it's lying, and I lie just with that sense of buddho, just awake, just keeping the mind in something wholesome, pointing to what is really beautiful. Because when we lie to sleep, the mind can start feeding on unwholesome things, because of the energy's lower. So we really guard the heart, and we really place mindfulness on something that sustains well-being and goodness. That's what I would say. And then when I wake up, to really set a clear intention, establish the heart and loving kindness, a sense of having the intention to meet the day, from that place. So intention really helps, because it's part of, so intrinsic to the experience of the citta. So we set these clear intentions. And then there are all kinds of things, people use to remind them, to be here. But that's just some opening comments. Ajahn Sucitto, maintaining mindfulness, going to sleep, waking, through the flow of a day.
Yeah. Establish right view. Mindfulness should be based upon right view. And so this is acknowledgement of causes and effects, good and bad deeds. That what we're experiencing is not a person, not a self. Essentially, it seems like a self, but it's really a mass of energies and psychologies and patterns and behaviors that are interacting, And I guess there's sort of like a lot of these hinge points in a day, beginning of it is like, ooh, you're actually going to try to activate that field into some kind of shape. And, I don't want to wake up with that. Thank you. I want to wake up, like waking up is like, there is waking up and there's no next, it's like waking up, letting things come together. So I tend to, it's a funny pattern, sleeping, awaking, because I also, have things that are not quite asleep, not quite awake, fully awake, or sort of twilight zones. I find those interesting zones to be in, because it's like almost like childhood again. It's like I haven't got the patterns running yet, and so I think it's good to lengthen that twilight, so you don't just zonk out and then surge out bed in the morning, rush off, get going, because you've got a whole whole field of sensitive effects there, and you start throwing it around, particularly along these habitual patterns before you've really established wisdom. You can start the day on a wrong foot altogether. So my sense is wake up gently, allow the light to enter. If it's light, of course, it's dark. Allow seeing to enter. Allow the body to return, because in sleep the chitta, moves out. You want to really returning to embodiment, weight of your body, pressure, whatever's blankets on you or whatever, and then okay. And I think the first thing is wait till there's willingness, right? Just that moment of okay, being here, feeling the energy build up, and then okay, so there's a series of causes and effects, field effects. Right? Let it come to a little bit gradually, if it means setting your clock 10 minutes earlier, so you're going to give yourself 5 or 10 minutes to unfold, and then slowly, get things moving. So because you don't want to just jump into your old programs, really. Ideally, you should wake up fresh, not like Groundhog Day, here we go again. Try to wake up like it's the first day. And how do you do that? Well, your body, you go back to your body and just, before you're a person, you're a body. And feel that breathing system happening. The body kind of, just be with that. It's quite a nice time. Yeah. And at the end of the day, similarly, like you pack everything up quite respectfully. Like duties are never finished. Work is never finished. It's always, you've got to just say enough. Because now the problem, you've got energetic problems. One is momentum. You just keep the wheels rolling, and it's very difficult to stop them rolling. The other is inertia. You can't get the wheels going. They don't want to go. So particularly, you've got to learn how to handle momentum energy, because there's always a bit more you could make, do, tidy, fix. And you just got to say, the energy is now out of balance, out of balance. You're starting to run on compulsion, and that's totally understandable. But whoa, let's lift, lift, and then what's again, that body, you know, the whole body down to your feet. As you lose it, you come up into your head, ideas, whole body down to your feet. Okay, and then it's really helpful to cultivate discharge. This is why now sleep is now become, people have to train themselves to sleep. You have mind retreats dedicated to sleeping because people don't know how to do it anymore. You know, because we're hooked up to machinery that doesn't sleep. It just switches off. We don't switch off. And that thing, something will always be buzzing at you. So you've got to learn how to discharge, unhook and discharge. You know, stimulation is easy. Discharge takes a bit of practice. And that's what breathing out's about. And really letting it sink and loosening. Discharge, discharge, discharge. If you do that properly, you're going to be much more replenished. Because what happens if you don't discharge, energy is stuck and it doesn't refresh. It seems a lot of energy is there, but it's unhealthy energy. It's overactive energy. You know, it's hyper, and every energy should travel in a phase of graduated arousal. Okay, let's rise up, doing, and then graduated discharge. Yeah. Yeah. Now you notice in the general work, there's no discharge time. Very little. Coffee break, we take more stimulants. So you've got to build in those discharges. And, you know, so before you finish the day, you really got to say, okay, tonight I'm dying. You know, this is the end of it. I'm dead. This is the last night. I'm finished. I'm dead. You know, sorry, didn't get my socks washed. That's it. And practice that. And then what happens if it is your last night? You know, do you want to go out worrying about tomorrow? Mental, or just say, okay, thank you very much, day. Thank you. I think I've learned something. And release. Release the future and the possibilities and the ought to's. Release and use your body to release as if it is your last night. One day it will be. And then, okay, this is the sense world. This is the karmic world. Take leave. Respectfully take leave. Breathing in and out. And sometime it will be the last out breath. Practice that as if it's the last out breath. And you say goodbye. Yeah. And thank you. Thank you is a good word to leave on. If you write, like you might practice reclining meditation, just lying. I generally do it on my back, and you keep the axis in mind. And then it's quite formal in a way, because it's quite, you know, it's not fetal. It's open. So you've got the axis, you've got the open body. Maybe put your hands on your chest or wherever, and you maintain awareness of that line. And a line across, and it's imagine you've got a canopy and your line there, just open but stable, and you know, and that's a very blessed mudra for the body to be in, because we are opening to that which is bigger than us and more profound than this little being. And then that's a good way to then just gently let it go, and recollections, last recollections, very small thoughts, a lot of lingering, a lot of savoring, taking leave, and then everything is peaceful. And you can rest deeply. And, you know, now that we have this thing where you've got the 8-hour sleep thing and the rest of the day you're busy working, that's not right. You know, it's not right. Generally, I think healthy is like you get 2 or 3 hours deep sleep, then a bit of wakefulness, and then maybe another 2 or 3 hours more sleep, a bit more wakefulness, and then just try to take little naps in the day. You know, 10 minutes of just reclining, whether you need it or not, just as a practice. Because it's good because this momentum energy is so encouraged in our world, so absolutely encouraged, and people stress themselves. The nervous system wrecked, and they're still pumping it. Yeah, so you've got to do that. Use those times for replenishment. Yeah, and you use your waking moment to just, what's the intention now? Be aware of that. You're vulnerable at that moment. You're open at that moment. Be careful your intentions. Maybe your intention should be to practice mindfulness, to establish sati, to stay embodied. That's enough. That's my recommendation.
Thank you. Yeah, because if we don't, in a way, discharge, if we don't come out of that momentum, we sleep and we wake up again and the anxiety's there. People get up kind of with the anxiety of the stuff they have to do. Certainly, it's something I have to guard against for myself. Yeah. Particularly, there can be so much we feel we're expected to attend to. Yeah, this unmeetable amount. Yeah. So how to not start the day running, already kind of heckled and off balance. So yeah, to really stop and establish, seems to me critical, this kind of uprightness, intention of body, kind of gentleness, kindness. Yeah, so we take that as what's meeting the flow of things. Yeah, life can have tremendous demands coming. So it's to really guard ourselves in that. So sometimes I just say to myself, does this really need doing? It says it does, but, putting down what can be put down so that by the end of the day, I'm not completely frayed. Yeah. So that when we come to go to sleep, it isn't that there's just this whole system's just desperate to switch off. Yeah, that we can actually moderate these transitions. It's hard, yeah. There can be tremendous pressure seemingly from outside. So to really take care. And in this flow, there's another question here. I'm wondering whether there is a relationship between being sensitive and taking something personally. If I take something personally, is that because I'm sensitive or just because I have at that time a view of self and other? Maybe I don't know, open with that question.
Well, yeah. Citta, heart, awareness is sensitive. Yeah, it is sensitive. And that means often it builds all kinds of defenses to stop impact happening. Yeah. But the defenses tend to have cracks in them. And so Citta also, though it's universally sensitive, it gets like extremely sensitive around particularly poignant, striking impressions. Yeah, so some particular meanings. So something extremely sensitive to. Sometimes taking responsibility, immediately jump into that. There's jumping in. And whatever citta experiences tends to be experienced as myself. And the particular patterns of those responses, and also the things that touch me, that touch the citta, that I tune it, that seem to the particular qualities that I notice. I'm sensitive to colors or sounds or fragrances or certain kinds of people or certain messages get me moving, So that, and people are different, Some people can walk through a room, it's a chaos, and just walk through it. So other people have just got to go around tidying it all up. Say they see the same thing, but people have different sensitivities to it. And so, and that the particular pattern of those sensitivities, this is what my specific self is. The specific contours of this self, and so then anything that touches those things, like a dirty room or something, I'm very activated by. The degree of activation, how triggered I get, that also seems to be me getting triggered and activated around things that I take seriously, and other people don't seem to notice much at all. So yeah, that becomes myself. Now you can't say, "Oh, don't take it, don't do that," because it's not a choice; it's a reflex. And so essentially, what we really, what I recommend doing is just trying to acknowledge this experience, and not, "Oh, I'm sort of a bit weird. I'm a control freak. I'm a busybody. I'm a whatever." Don't bother with that. It doesn't get you anywhere useful. Just expand your attention so you cover the entire field of being affected, of being touched by things, of seeing things that touch you. And just see if you can, at that point, there's the time when the first thing to do is to return to your stable place, your upright axis, the soles of your feet, your out breath, whatever your mooring post is. When you get touched by something, get to that. So you can check the activation. Not to stop it, but just to check it. To say, just pause. Because you've done this many times. And every time you keep doing it, you etch that pattern in more deeply. A pause. Breathe it. Find that stable place. Review the situation again. Look at it again. How much? Then you see, but that pausing allows you to be wise about that thing that touches you, say a messy room or something. Just pause. Then wisely, this is a room. It's not the way I like it. Seems disagreeable. Where does me come into that? Where does it become my job, my place? Where does that come in? Is that really necessary? Is it inevitable? Could it just be that's that? So it's the compulsiveness that we want to check, and then certainly see things it's not the way I would see it or agree with it, but that's that. And staying within my own presence, energies of this, and I might decide, I'd like to help out, or I might think, just a minute, you're pretty busy now, and it would be good for you to learn how to be more equanimous with things being not, with this being touched by stuff. Allow yourself to be touched by stuff and go to the still point, just as a practice. So otherwise, it's everything. And in this person view can take over the entire planet. You can take everything with that same sense of it. And you basically intensify karma and intensify the person pack. And one thing you do know about all this stuff is it's not self. You can leave it. It's not satisfactory. It never will be satisfactory. It's never completed. So let's just pause and see if you can meditate or reflect upon that particular activation. And is it really inevitable? It's not inevitable. You don't have to. If you do that, gradually the perception that triggered you will have less and less power, because you're not forming a feedback loop between being affected and responding. If you lessen that feedback loop, it's like an electric circuit. If you cut the circuit, the juice doesn't flow so quickly. Eventually the perception no longer triggers you. Yes, that's that. And you think, yeah, that's not really very good, but I'm not being eased by it. Yeah. And that's what those are the things that come up in my mind. Well,
yeah. So when I think of it, and I saw that question, I thought, well, we're not trying to get rid of the sensitivity. Yeah. It's not that the sensitivity is the problem. Yeah. It's the kind of grasping at the impact, yeah, that becomes where the suffering is. Because that self, sensitivity, that then the kind of view of self is incredibly painful. It's like a very painful contraction. So in my experience of that, it arises a lot, it will arise a lot in relationship to other people, yeah. The trees don't seem to raise it in the same way. The little pussycat doesn't do it. It's in relationship it can arise. And what I find really helpful is just to actually bring some space in. So like Arjun's saying, that kind of pause, that space. And this is not a mental investigation, but really just seeing the causality of things, yeah? That what is happening is in actually a whole field of process. And we can take it really personally and point it back, but actually it isn't and never was, yeah? It's much bigger often, the fact things that are affecting our sensitivity than just here, yeah? So to get more space around things. And the heart cultivation we're talking about at this time is really protective for this, because then when that sensitivity starts to tremble and contract, we've become attuned and we notice that, and we know we've picked up something incorrectly. There's been a mistake in our apprehension. So then, okay, what is needed here? And that gentleness, opening, calming, taking care, really establishing again a sense of well-being, okayness. It's not personal. It's just here. And then we start to understand how we get caught. The beauty of being on retreat is you can slow these processes down. As I was saying the other day, if you really slow it down, you see that some of the very sense of me arises out of hindrance. It arises out of contraction. So, it's the very opposite of the kind of assumptions, and that starts to free us up. We get insight into the whole mechanism of self. So, yeah. So we take this time we've got now just to slow these down, notice when these processes are happening, and start to understand them better. And that really becomes protective in all our engagement, yeah? Okay. Oh yeah, this contraction is happening. What happened, So, yeah. Gentleness, inquiry, opening seems to be really helpful. But not to rub out the sensitivity. Yeah.
Yeah, coming out of the personality world is kind of death experience. When I can't follow my compulsions, I ought to, I can't. It's like almost like a death. Except generally it feels much better when you finally died to your compulsions. You can't have things go the way you want them to, the way they should be, and then you get nasty and fed up, and no, then it just die. But of course, then you realize something that doesn't die. When the personality kind of has to give up, then you think, oh, it's something that doesn't die. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, that's right. We in a way, we manifest through these forces of personality and body and things, yeah? So it's not to get nasty with them either.
No,
Yeah.
certainly not.
Kind of friendliness with what it means to be in this kind of form and incarnation,
Ah, yes.
And really leads to the next question that came through, yeah? There's a lot of discussion and initiatives on human enhancement, radical changes to human body, mind as we know it, enhancing memory, cognitive capacities, bodily functions. How does this fit with right view and the practice of being with things as they are, harmony, embodiment? Yeah. I think it's really back in this question around self-view, isn't it? And the sense that this being, the shape, in a way, conditions have brought it into, there's something wrong with it and it needs changing. So it has a lot of hostility in it. And what I really see with practice as well, meditation, sometimes people talk to me about things and you think, oh, they've picked it up in a way with harshness. Yeah, they've picked it up because they think there's something not wrong with them, that there's something wrong with them, yeah? And they're trying to straighten themselves out. And, this is something I think we all have to really guard against. We come out of hostility to this manifestation, yeah? And we start attuning to the chitta, the really deeper forces of awakening. And then on the surface of things, this body, this personality, in a way, here am I incarnated in it. I have a responsibility to care for it, yeah? So I don't know about enhancement, but trying to keep it at least at a reasonable level of fitness and okayness. Then in terms of out of compassion, there may be things I need to understand and work with in terms of how personality manifests. But it's not out of aversion, yeah? It's out of this tender regard, for what it means to be in a body, in a heart, and in relationship with the world. So yeah, there's tremendous pressure to change what we look like, change how we act, change who we are. Yeah. Tita and I were talking before, and I was saying the whole thing that came with the kind of Zoom world of people needing to get their faces fixed up. And you think, yeah, there's tremendous vulnerability in bringing the sensitivity to being seen, yeah, to being in contact with the rest of the world. And to come back to that what it feels like to be tender, yeah, and how do we look after that tenderness? Not to really sense when there's hostility there, ill will, not wanting. Yeah. What's needed? And we're so trained to believe in the judgments and criticisms, yeah? So to really see them for what they are and put them down. Yeah? And it's not that we're not open to feedback, yeah? But we're sensitive to the love and kindness and that it's coming from. Yeah? So if it's hostile, we're careful. If it's kind, we consider, yeah? It's just a few reflections from this mind that hasn't quite woken up.
Yeah. Mm. Well, I think I checked out of the enhancement program quite a few years ago. If I was ever in it. And it's kind of, sometimes it's comical, but sometimes it's tragic, actually. It really is tragic to see the horrible, the terror and the fear and the lack of self-acceptance that people have, and people kind of sometimes trolled, because they're not adequate, either socially gifted or physically looking this way or got the right clothes, and people kill themselves because they can't, particularly teenagers, very, very dangerous. Enhancing, it's called enhancing, but pumping up, trying to, it's yeah, so it's really, that's why we say, look, just start with the depths, start with your deep, go inward, go to the depths, start getting your good stuff there, and it will grow naturally. You're not going to create and fabricate and titivate your depths, It's like, just get there and be as genuine and loving and accepting and natural as you can in your depths. Take that as your benchmark. The rest of it is just, And this thing, we're nature. You see, we're nature. We're not artifice. We're nature. You look around nature. It's got knobbly trees and grass and bits of mildew and things rotting and things growing and sprouting and rain, and that's it. We're part of that. You can't really improve nature. Can you? You can't tidy a tree up or make the grass green or something. If you do, it's absurd. You want to rewild it, let it be how it is, and love it for what it is. That's the enhancement, is to be more loving to how it is. And if anything can, kind of encourage you to be more loving in this natural, authentic way, yeah, go for it. But don't go for, if somebody says increase productivity, just woo, get away from that one. Somebody says, oh, this will make life more convenient, woo, get away from that one, because it's generally some kind of lure to get you more tangled up in stuff than you ever were before. Renunciation is a blessing, I tell you. But yeah, like Willa's saying, you like in nature, yeah. But then, okay, this is a natural system. Let's, it needs, just like the earth needs rain and air and sunshine, body needs nourishment. Yeah, it needs to be handled with care. Why not? There's a sense of caring for a feature of nature rather than, titivating something as an artifice for presentation. There's a completely different model. And it's like, you really, because you've got the depth processes, and they start to gradually become, sort of improvement programs. And it sounds reasonable. But, you start with something like Hatha Yoga, which is a deeply spiritual practice, and it turns into having a slick body. No, that wasn't what it was about. It's about getting your system organized and supple enough so you can do your breathing properly, so you can get into your meditation. That was the thing. It's not about looking super buffed up, and then you got these mindfulness can same sort of thing, like Amazon now are getting mindfulness booths where they can throw their workers, when they're completely exhausted, chuck them into a mindfulness booth and let them chill, and then get them thrown back into work again. A commodification of sati. Everything tends that way to commodification, and it's always, make your life brighter, better. Just oof. I'll just peacefully coexist in a healthy, compassionate, and loving way with the forces of nature as they manifest. That's my recommendation to tackle this. Yeah, even the mind, calm mind, you've got particular personality patterns and habits. They're not going to be squeaky clean. They're going to be knobbly and a bit weird at times. Get on with it, Don't get too hyper about it all. Just be accepting, loving, and know how to restrain yourself, and to be aware of your tender spots and be careful. So we're not producing classical icons of perfection, but learning how to be loving and compassionate with the way it is.
Absolutely. And in that we have to kind of guard ourselves too. Here am I in an aging female body, and culturally there's such hostility to that, isn't there? So to be careful, what's taken in is the kind of messaging in terms of, the sense of the the work that we're supposed to do on the level of personality and body. So to come back to what actually really matters in the precious time we have left. So it's really tricky territory because there's such a pressure, level of culture around it. So we'll just keep moving here. So there was a question, and it's quite a long question, so I won't read the whole thing, but it's really the person's talking about a visual image of the felt sense of being a small, vulnerable deer. And breathing quickly, newborn, alert, sensing the air, seemingly waiting to be old enough to get up. I ask what it needs. First is protection, freedom from harm. So they can do that. But the question around it is, can you offer any guidance as to what would help protect, reassure, nourish, mature this inner sense and sensitivity? What practices might benefit? They're coming out of a samatha tradition of practice. So, Ajahn, any thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Willa. I think the question, just to add a little bit more, was it said experiencing a sense of really couldn't find any place of safety or security. And when they looked inwardly, they got this sense of their heart or their being was like a little frightened, delicate deer, which is a beautiful image. And, what practices are useful. Mm-hmm. Well, I think you've had a gift there. Once you get these felt senses, they're like images that arise within the chitta, which are like the chitta's image photograph of the state of your heart or your body, your nervous system. There's a lot of fear in that. But the deer is also a very beautiful creature, sensitive, beautiful creature in that image. And I sense, as regarding it, there's quite a loving attitude towards that creature, and that's also very nice. So I think my hunch would be just wait a little longer, learn to, if you get that impression again, or that impression remains there, so like a message, and see what the deer would want, and express admiration, love for that creature, and offer to protect it. But you can't decide. It's not up to you to decide what it wants. You should serve it. Serve it. It's a message from the depth. And it's a message from the depth. It's giving you a signal. And you can't say, okay, I'll do this, I'll do that. You just wait till you get a sense of what would it want? What would it want? What would be helpful? And just listen, wait for that. And of course, stay in your body.
Yeah, I'd really echo that, Bhante, that these images, these felt senses are really precious and they show a real attunement. And it's lovely to hear the respect around that experience. Yeah. And we're just really careful, and the image that comes now as we're talking reminds me of an image I used a lot early in my practice, and it comes from The Little Prince. And the Little Prince, you know, as many of you will know, meets this fox and wants to be friends. And the fox takes him through this process of how to befriend something wild and almost skittish, yeah? And the sense of consistency, you know, that being there at the same time, the same place, just not asking anything. And, you know, the fox says, well, you know, if you come a little closer, I might come a little closer. So it's a tender process of respect, yeah. Not trying to catch something and hold it or change it. We're giving time for a deepening attunement. Yeah. So, and then as Ajahn Sucitto is saying, then what's needed becomes more and more clear. And I can hear the need there for safety. Well, the first act of the safety is not to frighten, not to demand something, to speak more than it's willing to speak, to be more present than it's willing to be present. We just keep creating the conducive space for it to be there. So, you know, these are things about attunement and care, aren't they? And what, you know, in terms of the external, yeah, making sure we're keeping good company. You know, when we're in these tender processes, yeah, that there's a respect for the process we're in. We're not putting ourselves in places where we have to be really armored, guarded, and, you know, where there doesn't feel like there's external safety. Yeah? So that's the beauty of being on retreat, isn't it? You can have this contained time to let these energies become apparent, to befriend them, to let them, to tell us, you know, what we need to know. Yeah. So to really respect this time of inwardness. Mm. And maybe the next question is a support into the answer to this one. And it's, what is meant by gathering of the good to deal with difficult mind states, you know, ruminating, wandering, etc. How does one gather the good?
Shall I start with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Punya is the word. Punya, the goodness. Through the goodness that arises from my practice. Remember that chant? So I think I did mention earlier, maybe everybody wasn't necessarily there, but there's good actions, but you don't get good actions. You get the results of good actions, and that's slightly different. It means you have to linger, and it will gather by itself. Now, so you know, this comes right down to, even though we meditate, you know, I talked about this vitakka vichara, sometimes called initial thought and sustained thought, or thoughtfulness, means that, and then you listen. You think, hand, oh yeah. And then tomorrow, oh yeah. And you listen a lot. And unfortunately, many people are going, oh, I've done that, and then next, oh, and I forgot that, and or did I do that? And perhaps I should have done that, and that was pretty good, but I better do that. And it's just, they're not actually taking in anything. It's moving on to the next thing. And this is part of the programming of a hasty society, you know, of a stimulation productivity society. We don't gather anything. You know, so we're doing all kinds of stuff and nobody's really gathering anything. You know, so you empty out, you become husks. You know, husks. And so you want to gather things into the depths. You don't have to, all you have to do really is linger and feel it, feel the results. And it will gather naturally, you know. Citta is an absorption experience. You know, citta naturally tends to absorb what it lingers on. It picks up the signal, the message, the feeling of that. It just does it. That's automatic. It's an absorption system. So, you know, but you've got to bring it there. So you actually are aware of what you're doing, and you are aware of the ethical or the skillful currents, those energies. You are aware of them, and then when the action stops, when you finish the action, stay in that same place and just feel the resonances, the effects. So that lingering, you know. And if you've missed it, as we probably do, then bring it back again. So I was saying earlier, practice of wise reflection, wise recollection is exactly that. We recollect. Means you take something. Now, this is recollecting good deeds, and this is one of the principal forms of recollection recommended by the Buddha. He said, recollect Buddha Dhamma Sangha, recollect your own good deeds. So then if you recollect your own good deeds, this lovely piece he says, you'll be happy even in the midst of your household full of busy with children running around. You'll feel happy and comfortable. Because your heart feels you're getting fed by the good deeds and the results of them. So you have to linger, appreciate, feel, sense, breathe out, relax. Another little tip is when you are touching into something where there's, you know, virtue, freedom from remorse, you know, freedom from aggression, harmlessness, breathe it. As you sense it, feel how your breathing is. Feel how your breathing is. Because the breathing will transfer that signal back into your body. It will transfer what seemed to be a mental and emotional state. It will actually transfer it into your embodied system. You start to feel brighter, and that's a great one of the great features of breathing. As we said, breath, love, life. You know, this is breath acts as the link, but you have to linger to pick it up, and then it will naturally bring it back.
Yeah, absolutely, Bhante. And you know, that sense of vitaka vichara. So where are we, you know, vitaka, what are we placing the mind on that we're then, you know, lingering with to take in? And as you're talking, I was thinking of, you know, here, you know, I've got different family around, and often I'll cook, people come for a meal, and if I'm not careful, my mind can be on, oh, were they cooked enough? Could I put a bit more of this into that? You know, a kind of discriminative relationship to what has happened. Yeah, I'm sure you're all familiar with this, yeah? Particularly if you do a lot of cooking and have lots of people come. And what's it like if, rather than focusing on what something tasted like or was like, actually on the gesture of offering hospitality, of being in a relationship with people, yeah? And let that come in, you know, so that it was never about the food anyway. It was about the gathering, the coming together. Yeah? So it can be really tricky. We can miss what's really going on because we're trained to be, you know, getting things right in some way. So to come back to the deeper essence of things. And another little example of how we can miss. You know, my dad is down the road, 89, recently widowed, and he said to me, "You're going to be alone for a few days here. I'll come up and I'll cook for you." And I thought, "Oh, my dear old dad, who's just learning to cook, he doesn't need to come and cook for me." And I could feel this immediate blocking, yeah? And later, we talked, and he's not coming, yeah? But just, can I take in that, the goodness that was offered? Or is the tendency, our tendency just to block even when gestures of friendliness and kindness are happening? So how do we take these things in and let them really nourish the heart? The different gestures of love that we are giving out and we are receiving. And some of them are direct, and some of them are just, they're not personal, and they're nothing to do with who we are or where we are. They're just being part of existence. Somebody up in Kukoi didn't grow carrots, especially for me, yeah? But I'm able to take in their nourishment. Yes, I'm in this field of connectivity. And when we eat, we actually reflect on that. It's food from the earth, from the sky, that connects me to millions of people. Yeah. Can I take in that nourishment of goodness and connection? So food's just not some substance I'm eating. Yeah. It's actually an energy of love. So to me, it's really about, what am I noticing? What am I attuning to? And we're so often missing the nourishment of goodness that's all around us. It's just a few thoughts out of this growing morning.
Thank you, Willa.
Yeah. I see we're kind of up to time, so maybe we'll let Ajahn Sucitto, you do what you need to do,
Yeah.
and me, and we'll...
My self-improvement program requires me to
take a sleep.
Get a rest.
And some of us, those of us in the Pacific, America, and this kind of part of the world, will meet again in 2 hours for a block of practice. Yeah. So be well.
Yeah. Take care. And people on retreat, if you've been with us for 2 or 3 days, you're in the middle. Really pause, linger, let it potentize, let the retreat grow. Don't be too much to try and get everything figured out about the future. Just let yourself sink and drink in the goodness that's being generated by being here. Really, I want you to really do that and refresh yourselves. So it's my parting words. So I'm going to do my business of self-refreshment, and I'll see you in a little while. Take care.